guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
Welcome back to the Hishaku Hideout, a weekly podcast where we talk about the latest chapter and everything Kagurabachi. I'm here with Dice.
What's good?
And today we're talking about Redux Volume 2. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone to join the Discord, and we have now also opened up memberships for the channel that offers 2 different tiers, so feel free to join those, because remember, members will get this a week early, and it'll be available to everyone else the week after that. So shout out to all the members, by the way, true Hishaku goats, and let's talk about Volume 2.
Let's get into it. Appreciate everyone.
Man, I forgot how much aura this motherfucker Sojo had, dude.
Right?
Double cheeked up in the first volume to going band for band with Chihiro in their first fight.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know me, I'm a huge Sojo glazer. I guess the one thing that really stood out to me reading this volume is how many banger double spreads there were. I feel we just read volume 1 not too long ago, but I feel in volume 2 specifically, the art, you can just kind of see it starting to go up a notch. Obviously we know how Hokuzono's art is looking today, right? I think most would agree that there have been some massive improvements, but that is just one thing that stood out to me in this volume, just how many crazy panels and just the art in some of them was damn.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to Hokuzono, even though his art, is, we could say kind of maturing as the serialization goes on, and it is getting better. Art is subjective, I guess, but there's certain things that you can't teach, and Hokuzono's always been great at choreography. It's always exciting, the shots that he uses, the perspectives. It's all evident. In this volume, I would say more so than the first volume, but as understandably so. This is where we get Sojo and Chihiro's both of their fights. So yeah, no, for sure, I agree with that. And you just mentioned both of the Sojo fights. I guess getting into the first one would be a good starting point, right? It's exactly how the volume starts off. Picking up where the last one, volume 1, ended. And them confronting each other for the first time, Sojo pulling up. And Chihiro's thoughts, just everything floods in. And then he just sees Cloud Gouger in his hands and immediately locks in. So what were your, I guess, and then they both run out, which I thought was really cool. What are your thoughts kind of looking back on this fight? The big thing that I think stuck out to me in the first one, all I could think about was the panel of seeing Chihiro's thoughts, being challenged with another enchanted blade. It kind of reminds me of as we'll see in a further, future episodes, when he meets the leader of the Hishaku for the first time, and we see that same moment of all these questions flood into Chihiro's mind. But because of the person that's before him and what the leader of the Hishaku has accomplished, he asks him that question, why did you kill my father? But this is he manages to stay locked in, and just take the battle for what it is in front of him. I think that's all that I could not get out of my head. Is just that moment in chapter 31 or 32, whatever it was. And what we also get the volume starts with Azami and Shiba talking about Kunishige's legacy and how a week prior to that was the 18th anniversary of the end of the Seitei War, and saying 2 enchanted blades clashing in a public space is bound to have casualties, innocent civilians, and all it takes is for one of them to get cooked or getting caught in the crossfire of their battle to kind of tarnish that Kunishige's legacy of being a hero of the war. So there's a lot at stake that we're getting front loaded to us. Hokuzono is letting us know this isn't just about Chihiro beating Sojo. This is about Chihiro contending with Sojo while also trying to keep his father's legacy alive. Because that does mean
his father's like legacy does matter to him a great deal at this point in the story.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And in regards to like Chihiro protecting his father's legacy, that's part of like this whole mission, right? It isn't really just him avenging his father. It's also like making sure that those blades don't tarnish the legacy of his father. So like, you're on the money with that. I do think how, like, once again, and again, this is like us going back, right? But it's something that he's continued to prove as the story has, has gone on. It's like how he sets these moments up. Hokuzono just knows how to do it, man. Like you just said, like the conversation between Shiba and Azami, and even getting that, that panel of like the kid at the museum kind of looking up at Kunishige's painting, and he's called the father of the enchanted blades, the legendary Kunishigi Rokuhira, and then immediately cutting back to the fight after getting that like dialogue between Shiba and Azami. I think it's just so good to kind of set up the stakes for this fight. And yeah, it's just something that Hokuzono has continued to do very well, later in the story. And again, the art, like when you see chapter 9, N10 versus Cloud Gouger, and you see Chihiro and Sojo face off, just like that one, or similar to that one art that Hokuzono had done before the story got serialized, I think it was. It's just crazy how Hokuzono has so much of this already like planned in his mind. And again, it's something that we continue to see in later parts of the story. But I just love how this whole encounter is set up off the bat. And yeah, once it starts, it really doesn't disappoint.
Yeah, it ramps up because like you mentioned, Hokuzono, like he has like these plans, or like there's things, we know he gets inspired by like other media or other works, and as he says that he tends to use them as they pop into his head. Like we know in a certain point in the story, he uses a lot of like the fisheye lens perspective. And, he says like he uses basically all his like inspiration at his disposal at the time, because he like, there's so much media out there to get inspired by. And he is like a big fan of like Western media, or just, all different kinds of series. So we see a lot of like these different inspirations kind of pour into like this one medium, and it pays off so well. You know what I mean? He's not afraid to like use a certain shot more than once, and I think that like that intrinsically kind of relates to Hokuzono's style. You can look at a certain point in the story and be like, oh yeah, Hokuzono did like, he really liked this shot, this certain perspective, like at a certain point in the series, or just choreography. He does that. He does recycle some of those things, but it never feels like worn out, if that makes sense. Like it always feels like fresh.
Yeah, no, agreed. Again, agree with that.
I mean, shit, the first fight was pretty, like, I gotta say, it's gas, because I mean, Sojo is just exhibiting pure battle instincts, like, strength, speed, just a knack for battle. Whereas like Chihiro is definitely been using his enchanted blade longer than anybody, but he's maybe not as strong as he should be. And later on in the series we find out exactly why that is, but it's his grit. Chihiro's like logical. Chihiro, he learns from all his past experiences, and he cared about what his father was trying to teach him. So like he took that stuff to heart, and that allows him to like fight on the same plane as someone like Sojo. Because there's times where like Sojo just blocked him from behind with his like offhand, or like like a crooked arm from behind him, and not only like blocked it, but like pushed Chihiro back. But so it's like, it's very good, like two different types of fighters, and I it's been a while since I read this fight, but man, it felt like rewarding to go back and read it now that we've gotten a lot more other fights.
Yeah, I mean, this fight I would say is aged like fine wine, really, and like kind of like to what you were talking about. Like Chihiro has like no problem acknowledging Sojo.
I mean, he immediately like recognizes that he's like miles stronger than him, verbatim. And he realizes that like Sojo wasn't even out of breath. So like it's one thing that I always like about Chihiro is, like you said, he's very logical. And I mean, we'll get into it, but like that's literally what Kunishigi kind of attributes to Chihiro's mom later in this volume. So I thought that's like a very nice, it's very interesting as well. But again, we'll get into that more in a bit. But yeah, like this whole fight, like I do think it has aged very well. Again, not just because of the way Hokuzono sets it up, right? Like they have like their little dialogue about why it is that they wield the sword, and Kunishigi repeats that, that motto that we've come to know very well now, that, Kunishigi said in the first volume. Samura goes on to say later on about defeating evil and protecting the weak. And again, setting up Sojo's character, that his reaction is something that, we still see kind of like used as memes today. And it's a very, dare I say, like iconic panel at this point. And yeah, I do, kind of going back to the whole Azami and Shiba thing, it's one thing that I really enjoy about this encounter in particular, because we continue to see like the conversation between Shiba and Azami kind of, cut back and forth between that conversation and the fight. It just kind of like continues to re-emphasize what is at stake here, and it's also like, because you can just see that it's Chihiro is also keeping that in mind, right? So it is like, again, we like to talk about like the cinematic elements that Hokuzono kind of implements in this story. I feel like that is one of them, or at least in this particular moment. And yeah, it's not a fight that lasts too long. We know how Chihiro is able to kind of basically absorb all the lightning. And again, like that panel that we see of like Sojo realizing what Chihiro did, I think is just like crazy good, man.
Yeah, it's like both of these, like as the fight progresses, it's kind of like Chihiro is springboarding Sojo's growth as an enchanted blade wielder. Whereas like Chihiro's kind of nerfed, you know what I mean? Like he's pushed himself a great deal already at this point. So like, to be fair, Chihiro isn't like full strength. So you could say if Chihiro was like 100% in this fight, it would have went maybe a little different, because Sojo hasn't like further synchronized with Cloud Gouger at this point. But it's also insane to think about Chihiro. I mean, think about this, like the entire part 1 ends less than a month, or like a month after the events of this volume. It's only been a month from the chapter 112 to this. That's not a long time, and a lot has happened. So Chihiro, he's always kind of running on E, or like he does get healed at a certain point. But we see like he's always like, we never get to see him like go fully like 100% all out in a fight. And that always kind of like, I was always kind of like frustrated at that when I first read it. But I think that's like kind of the whole like balancing system of him being able to use his enchanted blade as long as he has, more so than the rest. But I guess like it's a good handicap for him, considering like Sojo's only had his like a week, so he's at the like same kind of handicap himself, to some, or an inverse handicap.
Yeah, no, and like for Chihiro, as we will see and we'll talk about later in this volume, it really, like, most of his growth really just comes from understanding the blades, like or in this case N10 really. But like in this fight, the only reason he's able to like win this first match is because he knows Cloud Gouger obviously a lot more than Sojo does. And and again, I don't want to talk too much about it because we'll get to it, but it's also ultimately how he's able to defeat Sojo. It all comes from him like deepening that understanding of his blade. And I think what makes Sojo such a great antagonist is that, or at least part of it, is that he's able to keep up with Chihiro to a degree in that sense,
Yeah.
So I think
And-
it's just one thing that really makes them like really good rivals.
Yeah, they kind of they're both kind of play on the opposite ends of the spectrum, and seeing them meet in the middle
Yeah.
and who comes out on top is always it's exhilarating to like, especially like as you say in that like second fight at the end, you know, it kind of comes to a head in like the most Chihiro way. Like, you know, he's learned from all his past experiences. He kind of, I mean, literally gives the anti-cloud gouger squad the playbook. It's just Sojo is also like a quick, you know, like adapting himself. Like Sojo is, you know, if you would have gave Sojo a month with his enchanted blade, that man would have been a monster. You know what I mean? But you know, that's just not the case. You know, one thing I did want to bring up though, it wouldn't be Hishaku Hideout or a Tiberius recording without some kind of Shiba slander. Yo, Shiba's breath gotta be crazy. Like that man's always eating that dry fish, bruh. Like he did on the train. Yeah, I was like, bro, don't be waving that shit in my face if I was a zombie. I was like, get the out of my car, dude.
Yeah, he likes his fish. You gotta wonder if like the fish
ocean breath
from. You think the fish from the blade are kind of like looking at him in disappointment, like?
Yeah, bro's breath smells like N10 residue. Not like Chihiro's fishbowl. But no, you know, it always kind of, you know, funny after we, you know, because the anti-cloud gouger squad pop up to basically help Chihiro after Chihiro and Sojo's fight. That's when we see anti-cloud gouger squad pop up, right? Because he launches like that lightning attack or whatever, and the girl blocks it. Yeah, okay, I want to make sure. Gansui is what she uses. But before that, I want to bring this up again. When I first read this, you know, and I'll just be honest and be transparent, I did not realize there's a whole like lightning dragon in Sojo's like epic aura panel of him, you know, in the sky. That shit is so gas, bro. Like Sojo just knows he's like dripping with fucking aura. He's like, I'm gonna tell you what Kunishigi. He's like trying to tell him about his dad, and he's aura farming. Chihiro's just like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, and he's so like he has so much conviction in his own ideals, because he literally says like, oh, like it's like nobody can understand him, right? Like nobody can understand Kunishigi like me, or like I do. And it's like he says that he's only had it for a bit over a week. You know, it's like you said, like it's worth wondering just what he would have been capable with a lot more time. But obviously we know that that's just not what happens.
Yeah. He's not Ibiki, that's all we know.
Oh man, don't get me started. But yeah, I mean, you know, from here, like Chihiro basically like he kind of loses his composure a bit, and he, you know, tells him, don't talk about my father, you know, revealing to Sojo obviously that he is Kunishige's son. And
that's my dad.
And which, by the way, like that one panel of like Chihiro using Nishiki to kind of like go around Sojo, and he has like that one glare or gleam in his eye. It's like, it's a lot of the art like from this point forward just starts to pick up like crazy, and there's just like, it feels like every other page has so much aura from both Chihiro and Sojo. I mean, Chihiro definitely has his moments of aura in this volume, which we'll talk about, but of course he is like, before the fight can continue really, because it would have continued, Chihiro like has his priorities straight and just goes to save Char, which he's been kind of fooled into believing that these guys have after they, you know, put down Hinao or whatever.
That poor little girl, man. Like all she went through. Like I think like on this like second, you know, read through of this arc, it just kind of like makes me feel so bad for Char. Like maybe it's best if she isn't in it, like in this world. Like let her like be away from this shit, because she'll always be a Koyanagi. And I mean, the Shiba stocks aren't in the ground anymore, but they still in the negatives. But we can't rely on him to be there to protect her all the time. And now I ain't gonna be able to protect her. There's just so much going on, especially with Akamura around. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's best for Char to just have a existence away from sorcery. You know what I mean? Like, that poor girl's went through so much. But you did tackle on something I want to talk about, is like how Sojo, you know, he loves Kunishigi and his ideals, and you know, he believes that he knows Kunishigi better than anybody, which I think this also is like the perfect first villain for Chihiro, because, you know, they both love Kunishige for different things. Sojo loves Kunishige because, like, he can align Kunishige's creations with his, like, skewed perception of right and wrong. Or maybe it was just thanks to, like, his first experience seeing an enchanted blade in action back during the war. Maybe that, you know, when he was a child, his life was saved thanks to an enchanted blade's, you know, just pure destructive ability. You know, obviously we'll have to see what happens with that, like, that flashback the trauma sorcerer showed us from Sojo. But if that is what gave him, like, his second lease on life, where he thought he was cooked as a child or there was nothing to live for, and his life was saved thanks to just pure chaos from an enchanted blade, maybe that helped his you know, kind of align his perception further to, like, that kind of thinking. But we know Chihiro loves Kunishige in the truest sense, because he knows Kunishige better than anybody. He knows you know, he spent every day with Kunishige the last 15 years of his life with him. You know, no one knows Kunishige better than Chihiro, or at least the most, like, the latest version of Kunishige. You know what I mean? So, like, they both kind of seeing them both kind of come to a head, how they both feel about Kunishige, is always, I think, like, a big highlight in this volume, which we'll see later on, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's why I think, like, both encounters between Chihiro and Sojo, like, though they age like fine wine, even though we've had so many more fights afterwards in Kagurabachi, like, these are always fights that I can just, even this first one, right? Like, we're not even talking about the second one yet, but just kind of going back, reading these fights, like, none of it feels like any dip in quality, kind of going back and looking at this. Like, it all feels like really consistently good, and I think it's one of the reasons, I think we both agree that it's one of the reasons why Kagurabachi has only gotten better, and why its popularity has also continued to increase, is because things have only gotten better. But even going back and reading these previous fights, like, it's always been consistently good. I mean, shortly after, like, this first encounter between Chihiro and Sojo, like, we see what we see that they took Char, like I said, and I don't know how the hell they didn't kill Hideout, by the way. I'm just like, because, like, that one panel that we see over on the floor is like, there seems to be a lot of blood there, and it's like, we then see her chilling, like, in the hospital. Like, I mean, obviously, like, they might have, I don't know, man, but it's just like, I still sorcery. I just don't know how the hell they didn't, you know, how he now managed to survive any sort of slash. And I do like how Chihiro, again, speaking of, like, cinematic moments earlier, I do like how Chihiro kills that dude he's interrogating, and it is a very nice panel with, like, the car going up in flames, and how he just slides the katana or drags the katana, like, on the ground, like it's and nothing.
The blood splatter.
Ooh, it's so cool, bro. Like, Hokuzono just knows, man. I'm like, oh, dude, it's so good.
You know, like, you were cooking, because, like, talking about going back and, like, reading this fight, and it aged really well, and I think that's the case, because I don't think there's another fight like Sojo versus Chihiro. Like, you know, sure, there's, like, similar mechanics, or, you know, there could be similar choreography used in other fights, but the thing is, what's, like, at stake for both of the fighters, and it's just like, no fights feel rehashed really to me in Kagurabachi. Like, we don't get you know, this is a one-of-one Kagurabachi fight that we haven't gotten, another one like it.
Yeah, no, dude, I agree with you. That's actually a good point because, and we'll get there when we get there. But I think like the closest thing that comes to it is really, Chihiro versus Hirohiko, and even that it's like its own thing, right? But like when you factor in like the duel between enchanted blades, the clash in ideals, and not just clash in ideals, but also like related to the purpose of the enchanted blades and Kunishigi himself, and like these, like you said, they come from like perspectives that are like on the polar, like opposite sides of like the spectrum, and like when you put all of that together and like the fight itself, it really is like one of one in terms of like the sort of dynamic and clashes that they have. So that's a good point.
Think about this. Hirohiko, like his character arc is meant to be a long, for the long haul of Kagurabachi. His stocks are in the mud right now, but that's kind of the point of his character, to like shoot too high and come crashing down. But he is gonna eventually get Chihiro to see him on equal ground. I do think that's what his like whole point is. But Sojo is there. They clashed as equals at the end. We've never seen Chihiro have another conversation with anyone else like he did with Sojo, on equal ground of like fighting to death, putting it all out there for their ideals, and meeting each other, not with words, but every time they clash swords at the end, they're furthering along their conversation in the, this like mental landscape. Yeah,
no, for sure. And like I think last thing I'll say about Sojo before we kind of get moving, with the Char's part of this in this whole thing, is really like how Sojo isn't just a fan, and again kind of like adding to his character. Like he isn't just a fan of Kunishige, like he actively, at least in this moment, like he looked to surpass Kunishige, which I thought like is a nice wrinkle to his character. Just that fact alone, how he like, and then we obviously come to know like what he's doing with the Datsenseki. He isn't just like this guy who like was a like just again like just this big fan of his work and what he did back during the Seitei War, but he actively looks like to surpass his achievements, both wielding the blade and understanding them like he believes nobody ever did, as well as like what we learn later that he's trying to do with the Datsenseki. And he says himself like, we need to talk more with Chihiro. So again, just kind of adding to like that whole point that you're bringing up about like their dynamic being like no other. So yeah, I think that's one of these things that, at least for me, it like still makes him such a good villain, and like it's like you said, like almost like the perfect first villain for Chihiro.
Yeah, I think his character just ages even better as the story progresses, when we find out like he gets called a genius in the next arc because of his work with the Datsenseki. Sure, like he might not have gotten the desired results, but like what he was able to accomplish was more than presumably anyone else. Like, so he wasn't just like this crash out crazy like psychotic villain that just didn't care about his own like safety or what he had to do to get these results. He actually was putting method, like a method into the madness. He was like producing results. It's just wasn't the desired results for himself. So I think like his character has just been, there's a reason why he's a fan favorite. I mean, like I don't think there's another character like him per se, and he is one of the few villains, honestly, or main villains that has been in and out of the story in like 12 chapters, because like he comes in around like chapter 5 or 6 or something like that, and then he's out by like 18, like, so he's got a very short stint in the manga. But you can't, if you ask any like Kagurabachi fan to like give your top 3 villains, not antagonists, but like true villains in Kagurabachi, more than likely a lot, the majority is going to have Sojo in the top 3.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many good villains, but like regardless, he's still up there.
Yeah, I mean, because like, and we'll talk later about his the reality check that he held, kind of was so important that he gave Chihiro going forward at the towards the end in their final clash. But we could talk about the anti-cloud gouger squad, kind of get this moving a bit.
Yeah, man. Like the anti-cloud gouger squad. This is also one of these things. I mean, like again, we also find out what Datsenseki is, and like, things that like we do know now. Of course, like now the Seitei War arc focusing a lot more on Datsenseki and just how much lore goes into that. So I think we can, kind of skip most of that. We find out that there's 250 kilos known to exist. We see like some of the talk both from Azami and Shiba to Chihiro, and also what like Sojo is doing in terms of running some experiments on his side of things. And again, this is how he's trying to surpass Kunishigi Rokuhira and trying to use the blood of the Kyonagi to do so. But yeah, the anti-cloud gouger squad, this is one of those things that, as I was saying, is like upon a second read, I can appreciate it a lot more. And I guess looking at it more closely, like how Chihiro is basically feeding these guys information and giving them the game plan in order to be able to take out Sojo is really, really cool. Like guys like Ikuto, and obviously like this is a character that we see later on, but to me they all feel a lot more like personable. I mean, we know that how Kazane comes across, right? But I don't know, man. Maybe it's just knowing what happens to them eventually that I just kind of like felt a bit more I don't know what's the word, but like I kind of just I was just kind of fucking with them a little bit more this time around. And like one thing I will say like about Sojo, because we just kind of like, right, I just kind of like skimmed through all this, but like seeing how he goes about like treating Char to meet his objective of stabilizing the Datsenseki, it adds a whole nother kind of like perspective or side to his character, because he's like, we were talking about like this villain with like aura and his perspective on Kunishige, but like once you see what he's willing to do to Char, it just kind of like, I don't want to say changes everything about his character, but like that's how like, okay, yeah, like this guy's just a real piece of shit, really.
True villain.
Yeah, villain like through and through. But yeah, these anti-cloud gouger squad guys, like I just really enjoyed kind of like the conversation that we see between Chihiro and them, and like specifically Ikuto and his conversation with Chihiro about like Chihiro wanting to join the operation, but like obviously he can't, and they kind of like reach this agreement of like, okay, then we'll take on Sojo and you can rescue Char, and like knowing your personality, there's like nothing we can do about it. And it's just kind of like that wink wink agreement. And just reading like, again, like reading this time around, I think it's Ikuto specifically, or Ikuto especially, that is a lot more likable. Again, maybe that is just kind of like revisionist, right? Kind of like knowing what happens to them, and like also knowing how Ikuto comes back later on. That's kind of like warping my perspective of things this time around, because I definitely didn't feel as highly about these guys the first time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they came off as jobbers, and I think on this second read through, I think what's the most impressive is like how well I mean, obviously we know what happens at the end of the volume, but how well they did hold up. I mean, of course they wouldn't have done that well without Chihiro's like game plan, but it's still like, just because you have a game plan, that's one thing to say, when you get smacked in the mouth with lightning or some shit, what I mean, you change, that shit may change your game plan up, but we do see like this is Azami's elite force in the Kabunabi, like directly under him.
Oh yeah. And
I gotta wonder, like, Azami, you kind of was like, was fucking up there with Kazane just like they got people, it's like, man, you gotta like feel bad for Kazane, like, yeah, to some degree, but like he ratted my man's Chihiro out. I ride for Chihiro, so fuck Kazane. all 10 toes. But
Yeah, that's a good point.
we do get to see like you talked about Ikuto, right? And I think the thing that makes me appreciate Ikuto more than anything is knowing like not just how he comes back later on, but he doesn't bear no ill will towards Chihiro from what it at least from how it like it looks to be. He's obviously like he's the commander, so it's hitting him real hard, but losing all of them, especially Kugara, that definitely is a heavy toll for anybody, especially on any commander. You know what I mean? Azami don't seem like he's tripping all that much, but I guess, hey,
Azami just had other priorities,
Yeah, when you can fight as good as Azami, I don't think anyone could tell you shit. You know what I mean? Like, you don't like that I'm not sad? What are you going to do about it? But, I thought was funny too is like Sojo has his own Kugara on his squad. I didn't realize that when I first read it. The guy that like sniffs out the blood on Chihiro when he goes to rescue Char. He's kind of like Kugara coded.
Okay. Okay, I definitely that didn't come to mind.
Yeah, like that dude. He's like they're kind of like K9-esque.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, I see. In that context, I kind of see what you're saying, because like Ikuto straight up on Kugara's back when they jump in. I was like, what the fuck? Like this is y'all's first impression, but like, okay,
it's like they could be
just homies like that.
Like Kugara and like Sojo's Kugara and Kugara, they almost look alike too, kind of, except this dude's got a suction cup ponytail on the top of his head. It's so funny. The dude's design is so bad, but he ended up getting chopped up anyway. But going back to like the anti-cloud gouger after Chihiro gives them the playbook, and you brought up how they know that Chihiro's going to do whatever he's going to do, so at least include him, and to limit, it's better to include him and just allow him to help out to minimize what he may do if they don't let him in at all. Which the deal is they go fight Sojo because they didn't plan to save Char to begin with, which is kind of fucked up. What's Azami doing? You know what I mean? What's Azami gonna do? Like, he could have went, like, he would have went there, like, he could have did it by himself. But you know that's neither here nor there. But one thing I do get about Azami is he seems like from what we know now, like we know that like he helped like hide Chihiro's like identity and all that. But like he says that the Kawanabe only enlisted U6 for this. Like, bro, what you got planned? What you doing after this?
Well, see, this is the thing that I was just about to say. Like, I'm pretty sure this is all because they're getting ready for the Rakuzaichi. I think that's something.
He ain't do nothing there either.
Yeah, well, look, I'm just stating what was stated here, okay? Like, I think it's, I'm looking for, like, the page specifically, but I think he says himself how, like, they couldn't all just go in to fight Sojo. They were getting ready, or doing, like, investigations or whatever it was for the Rakuzaichi. So I do like that it's at least addressed. It just wasn't, like, like, it was addressed. It was addressed.
He's like, look, fam, I'll be there in the Rakuzaichi, and when Rakuzaichi pulls up, he's like, no, we got something else, after, actually.
Oh, my God. He could have been, doing the investigation for the Rakuzaichi.
We got the Kawanabe banquet.
You're not about to start slandering
banquet to
Azami
plan.
Too. You can, no, Shiba's enough. You're not about to start slandering Azami
Nah,
too.
Azami's my guy. Azami is my guy. But, maybe he was busy planning, like, their Met Gala or something.
Yeah.
But it's also like obviously for the plot, keeping Azami, sorcery and all that for later developments.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Always for the plot.
But yeah, so like that whole interaction really works in my opinion. Shortly after.
This is what Ikuto says the higher ups don't think killing Sojo will be enough to end this. And then the dude with the mask, he says the auctions coming up in the Hishaku are probably moving behind the scenes, so the Kaminabi can't just send all their fighting force at once.
Precisely, yeah. See, like, cut him some slack. That's what I was saying.
Zami ain't even say that. Zami's probably listening to him say that, and he's like, "Oh, that is a good excuse."
Yeah, it's true. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. What they said. Couldn't have said it better.
Oh man. Oh, but like shortly after that, we get like our first look at we did see that one picture that Azami had in his phone, but after this, like, now we get like this little panel of Shiba reminiscing about that one time that Kunishigi showed off his camel toe.
Yeah, but I was waiting for you to bring it, because if you didn't, I was.
Oh man! So, like,
she was like, guys... katana. Shiba's a sword, a sword watcher for sure.
Oh man!
Sheath that thing.
Oh man, that's funny. But like, again, the context of it is also very interesting, because he's looking at Chihiro and he's basically kind of like comparing how, what they were kind of doing at that age, versus how Chihiro's kind of like moving at his age, and he calls him a prodigy. But like, Shiba's also kind of like underselling it here, because like, we know what Shiba was doing at his age, like, now that we're getting into the Seitei War arc. So like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, he was going up against the Mikaboshi, and like, it's just kind of like funny looking back at it. But again, it's more of a personality thing, really, because I mean, shit, we see that Shiba even after the war, and like present day, we know what type of personality he has. But Chihiro's just different. Chihiro's just different, man.
Dependable, logical, aura.
He's cooking, man. Shiba's cooking there. Like, he literally tells him, "You're a prodigy."
He's like, "Hey, you're 18, right? Let me see you do the katana."
Put
that man on the list. No. But now that we have the, I'll stop my Shiba slander, because I do feel better about him, these days. But now that we have basically the game plan, we see the anti-cloud gouger squad pull up on Sojo at his favorite place, the bathhouse. And this is the first mention of the word phantoms, as Sojo kind of starts talking about, the Kaminabi are the ones that hold the sorcerers in check, that, now involve the, innocent civilians in the world of sorcery. And as we know now from the flashback arc, the symbol of that agreement is no longer present. And, after the war, for whatever reason, we still don't have that information yet. And, so these phantoms and all that, like, I just thought that was one of like a very nuanced highlight of the volume.
Yes, man. I mean, again, we were talking about the spreads earlier. I was doing a lot of glazing, and here I go again, because this might sound like an exaggeration, but to me, especially because like you said, the whole phantoms dialogue is what kind of like really adds to what I'm about to say. Is like, this is still one of my favorite double spreads of the whole series. And like, the art is amazing, like both from like the perspective of like seeing up top from Ikuto kind of looking down at Sojo, and then from like Sojo looking up at them. And it's like the last time that the last and maybe only time that those guys have like that amount of aura. But like you talked about, like the whole Phantoms things, and now knowing what we know about like the Soga clan and how the Kamunabi had to basically take their place in becoming the kind of like the people that kind of keep everything in check, right? But it's just like, man, I really, really, really like this double spread. And like the fact that it's also Sojo's narration, the timing of it, just everything, man, everything. And like also, not to get like too deep into this, but like what preceded it as well. Like we also know what Sojo's been doing with the Datsenseki. He's been kind of like handing it out to these other Yakuza guys to just see what can be done with it. And like, he knows what's gonna happen and he doesn't care because he ends up like fucking smoking those guys as well. No problem. Back to business. Got to keep working on stabilizing this shit, you know?
Yeah.
But like the pulling up of these guys, man. And like, you know, there we see like Igato officially introduced and man, just crazy shit. Crazy shit.
It's kind of like this like spread. It's kind of like the calm before the storm, if you will. You know, it's like this is the beginning of the end of the volume, and you know, I think it's that is probably my second favorite spread in the volume, and maybe going forward we'll try to like each of us pick our favorite spread, you know, and all the volumes going forward, just to kind of add like a little, you know, something fun for us to, you know, talk about as well in these episodes. Because like my favorite spread hasn't come up yet, but you know, that spread, like looking back at it now, it's one of those ones where you appreciate, but like looking back at it, I mean, shit, that he was cooking with that shit.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I mean, from here we see their battle begin, and they're doing a good job of contending using Chihiro's game plan. And then we cut to like seeing Chihiro begin his plan to rescue Char, which this is the first iteration of an extension ability, you know, by way of the True Realm, and you know, enter the Kuro Shred, which I mean, so cool. Just the compact slashes of like the tiny schools of fish. Very a logical use of his enchanted blade, you know. Like I said, it just plays into like who Chihiro is as a swordsman and as a person. Like I don't think like Sojo would necessarily ever come up with like that kind of extension ability, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Sojo, he just does his own thing, right? And what he does is basically the remote activation, which, you know, well, we can talk about more in a bit. But
yeah,
again, speaking of spreads, that one spread of Ikuto doing his Jikai, I thought was like also really good. Reading the volume, this was the panel or like the page that really made me kind of realize what I said up top. Like, yo, like this is it starts to feel like slowly like leveling up the art, like chapter to chapter, volume to volume. It was with this page that I really just got that feeling. I do like, and again, it's like one of the few things I'll say about the Cloud Gouger or anti-Cloud Gouger squad is like that one moment of like where he's like telling them to like let them hit him with the lightning, because it's not like yeah, and it's like they're literally taking a piss, like they've already reached that level of confidence. I thought was like funny, just off like one conversation. But yeah, and you know, like the way the chapter ends is like both of them essentially tapping into the true realm, right? And we get like for the first time what the true realm is, and both of them are starting to like scratch that surface in their own way. Again, just kind of like putting them in an inevitable collision course once again. It's just adding to that dynamic we talked about earlier.
Yeah. You know, it's not like a Bankai or a domain expansion. It's literally just a further, you know, you synchronizing with your blade to answer a current problem or a current issue that, you know, you didn't have like the answer for originally. You know, like Chihiro, you know, he's weak, his body's damaged, like Kuro, like it basically the way it augments the spirit energy, that to Shred is very different, so it's not as taxing on the body, but still the same spirit energy consumption. You know, more compact movements that kind of help the body's movements through compared to like before. You know, it's like answering a time in need, but you know that can only be done like as you further synchronize with your blade. You know, it's not something that, you know, you could just whip out your ass. You know, you actually have to like further your usage of the blade and, as well as like further your own understanding how the blade works, your own ability with the sword. A lot plays into it, but you know, seeing that here and seeing like some of the future iterations of the True Realm stuff, like beyond the theoretical, we see some True Realm stuff that's pretty crazy, thinking of Samura specifically. And
Yeah,
and
I mean, that
Soga,
statement. Yeah, that statement alone, like you said, beyond the theoretical, does some heavy lifting, because that's really just kind of like what allows for infinite possibilities, and why you should never be like surprised no matter like what you see from the True Realm, because it was like Hokuzono always gave himself that space from the jump,
yeah,
and I
it's
really
good.
like that.
It was definitely a good. It was very smart of him to give himself like a back door out of like certain things. Like obviously it can't be the answer for everything, but he has, for the most part, he picks and chooses when to kind of like throw that word True Realm out in the series. And like it's so far it's been acceptable, and in terms of like being content with how the story has portrayed the True Realm, and how he's just kind of executed on that part of the power system. Because it can definitely get out of hand quick, something like that. If he writes himself into a corner and just relies on that to back him out. Whereas it's more like he's kind of done the groundwork for a lot of the True Realm stuff, and we just kind of see it come to light when the moment of desperation hits the character. Kind of like gets flushed out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like their breakthroughs at the end of the day, right? Like the way, and it's like the way that it's kind of like stated here. At the end of the day, it's like they are breakthroughs, and you can really only do that when you have like an obstacle you have to get over, right? So that's one thing that I really enjoy about this whole thing, and seeing how both Sojo and Chihiro kind of do that in their own way is really cool. One thing I will say about Chihiro, I've talked about this in the first Redux episode as well, and it's something that I've also said in like my own videos, and I'm pretty sure other people in the community have said as well. But this motherfucker really is like Batman coded so many times, bro.
Yeah,
like the way,
yeah, just all in the shadows and shit.
Yeah, like when he first pull up to the guys that are sitting down, and then here like he's kind of walking along the roof, like is just kind of like hanging there. Is like, this dude is so Batman coded. It was like it's so funny.
He like exists between the good guys and the bad guys. He's like this third parallel force that runs on his own accord in the shadows. But that panel you talk about, those guys playing cards at the table or whatever, he's just like, you just see his eyes in the shadows in the back. That shit is so gas. That was my favorite Chihiro panel for the longest time. And then like the guys on the phone and shit.
Yeah, Ty, I do want to say like, right, because I know you brought up the Kuro shred, but one thing I do really want to shout out, because it's like one of my favorite interactions between Chihiro and Kunishigi, and is ultimately like what leads to Chihiro being able to make that breakthrough of his, is like that conversation of like Chihiro realizing that he'll never be like his dad. And I do like that he's like yeah, you won't, like not even close. And obviously it's like he doesn't have to spell it out for him, and Chihiro doesn't kind of like recognize what he's saying at that moment. But I think it's pretty clear that, or at least my interpretation is that like it kind of goes to what he had already told him about like forging his own path or whatever. I forgot like how it is exactly that he says, like he's gonna have to jump, like he's gonna have to find the like his reason, or like his own outlook way. And so I feel like Kunishigi, the way he sees things, and like now that we know also like how he kind of came up, it's like I feel like Kunishigi, and as a father, it's like he knows that Chihiro is going to be so much more,
Like he's never gonna be even close to the man Kunishige was, because he's just gonna be different. He's just gonna go past that in ways that, like, at this point Chihiro could never even imagine. And it's so Kunishige, like the way he goes about like explaining that to him, right? And this is the moment where he says, like, you're logical like your mom. And of course, like, now in the Seitei War arc, we've gotten to meet Chiaki. We haven't seen too much of her to like know exactly what Kunishige is speaking of, but we know that she is, you know, the one with the gift of prophecy, and how much responsibility kind of was on her shoulders and this whole thing. But you know, like Chihiro says, it'll be a waste that you were born Chihiro Rokuhira if you always try to follow in my footsteps.
I love that panel. Like, don't get too fixated if you try to always follow my footsteps. It'll be a waste that you were born as Chihiro Rokuhira. And then you see Chihiro's reaction to that. It's like you're my dad, you're my hero. I look up to you. You know, you're like a hero, a war hero. You saved Japan. Everyone, you know, sees you as such. What do you know, like, he couldn't see himself becoming anything more, but it's the fact that, like, a great depiction of a father is like on these pages. The short, you know, it's like 4 pages of the volume, but this is what sets him apart from like any other father in the series, or a lot of father in manga in general. Like, he's saying, like, you know, what makes sense to me may not make sense to you, but it's the fact that, like, him just you know, supporting Chihiro, him explaining things, and as you said, like, Chihiro understands what his father is saying, even if he can't like relate exactly. You know, Kunishige can kind of, you know, act on his own like whim, like he can just kind of like freestyle. Chihiro's more methodical, and so it's like him teaching him by like an example of like how he isn't, but that doesn't mean like your way is wrong either. You know, just don't get tunnel visions. You know, find your way, and, you know, keep a cool head, and we see Kuro shred.
Yeah, like it's that moment specifically because obviously he does kind of spell it out a bit for him. Like earlier I said that like he wasn't really clear about it, but like Chihiro isn't like really, because, you know, he's like, you know, Kunishige says that he can do so many things he can't, and he's like, oh, like cooking and cleaning. And like, you know, it is, again, like knowing who Kunishige is and the type of guy he is, like the fact that that's how that interaction goes, I thought was pretty funny. But like when he starts doing like the, you know, the movements with his hands, and he's like, oh, you start to get like this, and it's like the tunnel vision, and then he says keep a cool head and be more flexible, like, just, it's so Kunishige.
Let me see if
right?
I can
like,
do it with my feet.
Yeah, man, like and like Chihiro's like, shut up, man, enough already. But like, it's so cool because he's like, the message is getting through to him, and he finds out what that move with his hands is, right? And like that transition of like young unscarred Chihiro, you know, learning to keep a cool head, and then cutting back to present day Chihiro, like you said, right before the Kuro shred. We also see like what's going on with Char, and about how these like fucked up scientists like are about to like do God knows what with her, you know, and like Chihiro just locked in. And yeah, man, it's crazy. It's, you know, keep a cool head and be more flexible. And then we get that insane spread, which I assume this is your favorite spread of the volume.
No.
Okay. I wanted to take a guess. Yeah, it's so tough, bro. It is and so like, tough.
The one thing I like too, because there is a thing about they talk about Kuro Shred, and it does say it didn't create. He didn't create it from a place of logic. Instead, it was a sudden breakthrough. And as you know, to your credit, you did call it a breakthrough to compensate for his ravaged body. It's like a time of need. This was like his instinctual answer for that. It's what how can I get rid of these like you know, these problems in front of me with like my body being ravaged. And you know that, and it says like his innate understanding was accelerated, and we just see him like Nishiki dash, and it's like he's gone.
Yeah, and like it's exactly what Sojo does with the remote activation as well, right? It's like there's this obstacle, and how can it be like you know, how can you get through it? And it doesn't come from a place of like what should happen, but like
what can happen.
It's instinct. It's like flow state. It's like just getting flow
yes,
state.
Flow
And
state. Yes.
The sword answers that call.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great stuff, man. It's great stuff. Like Hokuzono, you can tell like he's on a roll, like in this part of this arc, kind of like
he's in a flow state. Yeah, he's true ramming him with the pen.
Yeah, because then and I'll let you get into this, but Char's backstory.
Oh yeah, that's just, I mean, terrible. I felt really bad. Like I said already, like that poor girl went through so much, and her mom is like, the Koyanagi blood, and like, yeah, Sojo's like, you knew your blood is basically is like cursed you in like your clan, and you went ahead and didn't heed that warning, and you decided to bring a offspring into the world with this bloodline.
Evil, just
like
evil.
Yeah, not only like just calling it like, just saying like this the reality of it, but like making her mom feel like it's her fault. And then, Char is so young, but it's like she's old enough to understand like what's happening. And it's Chihiro, like a true hero is somebody who like reinstills the want to like live in others. Like a hero does that. And like I think he's kind of helped Char with that. Obviously we know like the mom told Char like, oh, you can't tell anybody about your secret, our secret. Like she gets hurt at school. This is something that they have to be careful of. She has to limit herself. She cannot be her true self because of like how the Koyanagi are like viewed. And it just sucks that like the poor the mom made a stand to allow her to escape. And we know Norisaku Madoka, the Daruma sorcerer, his bitch ass, was talking shit to Char about like, your mom died and this, that. And by the way, Shiba thought he could save him or was worth saving. I just want to remind people of that.
Oh my god. You always on that Shiba slander, Tommy, man. No, I mean, I gotta kind of like hand it to you there. I can't really be mad at that.
Yeah, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because of like what they went through, and now we know like what he saw in the like preambles of the Seitei War. Mm-hmm. The man even then he didn't want to see people die. Like he's just
your point.
Like even then he just doesn't want to see people die. So I can give him, if I liked him, I would be arguing for that.
If I liked
him. So let me put the hating aside and at least give him the benefit of the doubt there. But like Char is like now found someone that she trusts, and Chihiro's done, been that person that she can rely on and have faith that he'll come save her, and he did come through. And that's what kind of springboarded her ability to be able to like heal his hand, because Chihiro was like cooked. I mean, even through everything, the man's been through a lot, literally since the very like start of this arc. He hasn't been 100% since it started, and he's still not. But at least like him being who he is as a person enabled Char to basically be able to see, that there is reasons to trust, that she doesn't just have to close herself off, and him being who he is allowed her to heal him. So it's like he's getting his she's like, oh, here's your flowers for being a good person, and like, because if she didn't see him that way, she wouldn't be able to or want to heal him. Like deep down, it's the fact that there's a need that she wants to heal him, because of who he is.
Yeah, no, you put it perfectly, man. Like that is what heroes do, right? That is the sort of inspiration that heroes kind of bring life to in other people. And like the whole thing between Char's mom, like just seeing them interact up top, and then like obviously like when they're both locked up, like it goes from like wholesome and heartwarming to just like heartbreaking so quick, man. Because we know how ultimately Sojo came to find out about them, and it's because this fuck ass dad of them,
Bomb.
of Char's. Yeah. You know, this dude like ended up giving away that information, and like the way that Char's mom also goes about like talking about that, how like it was just once that she told somebody about it. It was somebody she loved, and you can just see like how there is a bit of regret in that. And then immediately, you know, she tells Char that like she is happy, right? Because she has Char and she's the happiest person in the world. And that's obviously like a scene that we see later from Char kind of saying the same thing, that or like a similar thing, that she is happy because she is with her mom, even though she's locked up. And it's so heartbreaking, man. And like you said, like obviously she ends up losing her mom, and Chihiro kind of like is able to obviously not take her place, right? But just gives her like that light at the end of the tunnel, and gives her another reason to look forward to life and be happy. And I do want to like, because you were talking about this of like how she was able to heal because it's something that she wanted and she had that drive, and it's how she was able to use that power. I'm almost certain, because it's not flat out stated, but everything points towards this being the case, that it's also why Sojo couldn't stabilize the Datanseki with the Kyonagi flesh, because there wasn't that will from the person who bears the flesh for it to be able to work. At least that's how I kind of looked at it, the way everything is framed, and it is kind of like one thing after the other. I thought that was really, really good, man. And of course, those final moments between Char and her mom, again, just absolutely like heartbreaking. And there's even like this little parallel of like when the mom was running away from the clan and when Char is running away. It's just like, man. And this is one thing that did hit just as much the first time I read it, but man, just looking back at it, like it's impossible for it like not to hit. It probably hit more this time around, knowing just how cruel this world of Kagurabachi is. I mean, we actually know for a fact that because it's stated that the Kyonagi clan was wiped out after the war once the rumor spread. I think that is a conversation that we had in the first Redux episode about kind of like the timeline of this kind of thing, or this event. And so yeah, it just another example of how these, you know, criminal sorcery gangs just went crazy once there was like no real enforcing, you know.
Yeah,
I'm kind of missing the word there, but yeah,
the void of like the symbol, you know, of the agreement to keep sorcery like secret from the, you know, general public. You know what, you know, we'll still have to see what happened exactly, but
oversight.
We do know that
oversight is the word.
It's not present, you know, in present time Bachi. Like that's what can enable people like Sojo to do what he does, and this and the other. And you know, like what I thought of with the Koyanagi stuff is the girl that we'll meet in future volumes. I think maybe volume 4. Yeah, volume 4. The girl with the ice skin. You know, it's like cursed by their lineage. Never could really, the one person that they relied on or thought, you know, they loved, that they thought they could trust, just screws them over. And it's, you know, it's like, man, there's some really ain't shit motherfuckers running around in Kagurabachi.
Oh man, are there? Are there?
But we do see that you know, we got that talked about. We do see like Sojo synchronized, and we kind of talked a bit about that, I think, already, about him cloaking himself and the sword answering his true realm, or like that true realm ability to like answer to him that call, further his understanding and synchronize with his blade to basically cook the anti-cloud gouger squad, even though they already got the sword from him. And that basically ends that fight with, you know, we see Kazane believes like the enchanted blade should not exist in this world, and you know, he's probably cooking. he's cooking probably. And you know, this does kind of lead into like my favorite spread, which is just Sojo and Chihiro standing across from each other. Like, it's a simple panel and it's not as art intensive, but I just love like the weight of the moment. You know, they both like, Sojo saying, I thought you wouldn't be able to move for a while anyway. You seem to have a deeper understanding now.
Woo.
You see his lightning dragon, and Chihiro has his little fish. He's getting mogged right there. Like Sojo's look maxing right there, but we know to the victor goes the spoils, because the 12-second fight begins, and I'll let you kind of talk about that. I mean, we kind of talked a lot about that fight already, but the choreography in this 12-second fight, and I think the usage of like the time itself was pretty I thought it was jarring the first time I read it, but I think now I'm just more familiar with Hokuzono's like writing style. It like really made this fight way, like I liked it still regardless when I first read it, but this time I think I enjoyed it even more.
Yeah, that's actually something I hadn't really thought about. It is true. I feel like even though it is good, the choreography, it is something that I 100% believe he has only improved on. But like, yeah, if you didn't really point it out, this isn't something that like I had really noticed. And you can kind of like only tell when you compare it to like the other fights later in the story and how the choreography gets a lot better. Yeah, the thing about this fight really, as we kind of already talked about, it is that conversation they have, and both having had already their breakthroughs, they're kind of like both beaten down or worn down, and they're able to within 12 seconds still kind of push themselves to the limit. And we still haven't gotten like a concrete answer about what it is that's going on here in terms of like how they're able to have this conversation and this like mental escape. My theory has always been that it's like two people that are like tapping into the true realm when they're clashing. This is kind of like what it looks like. I don't remember if it's something that's kind of like already been like if we've seen more of it later on, because we know obviously that like Chihiro and Samura both are able to within their fight like do some crazy stuff. I also do like, and this is something that I hadn't really looked peeped until reading this, you can see like Ikuto like just his legs just stuck under the boulder, and shortly after he is like said to have lost his legs, and like it was it was there, like it happened, right? Like obviously we see Kagura's mask, and this whole fight is just gas, how like they're both able to make the necessary adjustments on the fly within 12 seconds to really match each other. And Sojo's trying to keep up really, but you can just like tell that Chihiro's understanding is just only slightly better, and the fact that he's able to come to terms with what Sojo is trying to say, I feel like it is like a good symbol of what gives him the edge, right? And it does kind of like align well with the fact that he understands these blades better than anybody else. He's able to really do things with it unlike anybody else, and the fact that like on top of that he's able to acknowledge Sojo's convictions, and it only gives him more, like it only feeds his own conviction to strike him down, is still like, again, we talked about, is still like probably what makes this fight one of my favorite, or why like I still regard it as being so good even today.
Yeah, and what I think the whole thing with them having that talk and that mental escape is more just about like two fighters, like you see it in like shown in manga a good bit, two fighters of like the, kind of reaching, like even Sojo says like you get the actual like what he says, there's much we have to discuss, but what we need now isn't words, it seems. And they're basically just exchanging ideals through every clashing of the blade. Every time they clash, they exchange their ideals further, they get a further, deeper understanding. And I don't know if there's like, if basically that the Hokuzono is just using the kind of their actual talk,
the trope.
Yeah, like it's just kind of, that's just him symbolizing them exchanging their ideals, or if it's like a like True Realm has something to play along with it, because we do see Samura and Soga later on kind of go back to Samura's house when they're talking about Chihiro later.
Yes, I knew that there was something. Yeah, that's kind of what I was like, as I was talking, I was like, wait, I think we kind of see another example of it later on, and I was just forgetting that's the one. So, yeah,
and I think it's just people on the same level kind of coming to a head and understanding each other, not with words but with their swords. So I don't think it actually happens, but I think like the takeaway from it does like exist still, you know, because we see Chihiro kind of after this fight, we see Chihiro kind of accept Sojo's words.
Yeah.
But that's all the more reason for him to like kill Sojo.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he's like, I'm more resolved. I know my father, and, you know, what you say can be true for you, but that's why I'm going to cut you down here. Because, you know, anyone can look at his father or his father's work and have their own opinion on it or their own perception. But Chihiro exists to right all those wrongs.
Yes.
And, you know, he comes out on top. And the way he wins is by breaking Cloud Gouger, which not only that, Sojo poured in like basically double the amount that his body could withstand, while Chihiro tripled the amount, and then but still expected Sojo to react. And because he didn't underestimate his opponent. He's aware of who Sojo is at this point, and he knew he was going to be able to at least react to it, which caused him pour it all out and then stop. Stop at the drop, which would like skew his movement. So and then that's what allowed him the opening to break the Cloud Gouger and deliver a lethal blow.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's not like it's nothing. Like all he did was just stop the trajectory and slow down, and just like that alone just completely fucked up Sojo's timing. When you really think about it, it wasn't like this. He didn't pull out like no new ability. He didn't do anything that he hadn't done before. It's quite the opposite. He stopped it. Like he literally like paused the Nishiki and just went for the blow right there. And it's cool because you can see like the trajectory of the blade right when Chihiro calls Kuro. And just see how like Sojo would have gotten it if Chihiro had just continued on that timeline, right on that Nishiki amp. So yeah, just some really, really cool stuff from Chihiro, and again, just proving that nobody knows these blades and how to use them like he does.
Yeah, he's the foregone expert of the enchanted blades, and hey, he does always have those Rakuhira eyes, which
Yeah, true.
It isn't talked about yet, but I mean those eyes are like, they're better than the 6 eyes, you know what I mean? Like shit.
Yeah.
But now, fight's over. Chihiro, I think I love like Chihiro after the fact, like he loses his arm, for good, or not for good, but like actually gets chopped off. And he doesn't want Char to like it's the fact of who he is as a person. He doesn't want Char to touch it. He doesn't want her to have to just at sight. It's kind of like a very visceral like wound. I mean, we do know he gets his arm back, but it's not like he expects her to do it, or he's like looking like he doesn't use her. Char. Yeah, it's like there'll be a time and place for that, but and like Chihiro's just like looking savage as fuck. He's like, you will never stand as an equal to my father, and for that I'll cut you down.
Ooh, it's such a cold moment. I remember this panel not getting the love it deserved, and when we did that one poll of like most aura moments or like best aura moments.
Yeah.
It's just so many aura moments in this story that like it's crazy how something like this is overlooked really.
Yeah. And you did you kind of was talking about like the Koyanagi cells didn't answer to like Sojo's calls because they didn't have that like that innate want to help him, whereas like we see as Sojo's reaching for the Datanseki, Chihiro puts his hand on Char's head. As he's reaching to put his hand on Char's head, and as he puts his hand, we see at the very bottom of that page, we see Sojo's hand like reaching for the Datanseki, or like letting go of the Datanseki as it explodes.
Ooh, yeah.
So
That's
it's
a good
like,
one.
so it's like a good like parallel to each other. Like we know that the Koyanagi had no play in the Enchanted Blades at all because it happened after the war, but still a nice callback to like why they didn't help Sojo's cause further.
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious, but it's also like what you were just talking about. Like Sojo was literally like using Char and her blood, while Chihiro like has no issue in like avoiding her kind of exerting herself in that fashion. So again, just kind of speaking to how they really are polar opposites. And one thing that I do appreciate about like this moment from Sojo, and it is why like I not only do like I really like him as a character and as a villain, and also like I think this, for him to go out this way is so fitting and only adds to his character in my opinion. And this is something that I've said before. It's what he told Madoka, right? About like, you have to commit one measly lifetime to whatever it is that you want to do. And I'm obviously butchering that line. He says it in a lot cooler or whatever. But like, this is him doing that, right? Like he dedicated his whole life, or at least, the part of it that we've come to know 18 chapters into the story, into like surpassing Kunishigi Rokuhira and stabilizing the Datanseki. And even, in his dying moments, he's able to just like put it all, like just one last attempt at it. And it just completely blows him up and finishes the job. And it's, I thought it was so just fitting and accurate for his character to go out this way. And that line that he's like, that what he tells Madoka, what I just said, is something that always like resonates with me. And like, it always like rings like when I see this moment, because it's like the first thing I think of. It's what I thought of like the first time I read it. And like on this reread, is like, yeah, man, like, this is literally what he does here, and it's exactly how he goes out. So just a banger villain, honestly.
Rest in piss, though.
Yeah.
It's so funny. We, like as, after he explodes, we see the castle blow up. But before that, Hishaku does pop up to get the briefcase of the Datanseki weapons. That's going to come into play in the future.
Sword bearers too.
Ooh, we see the sword bearers, and we get we meet the one of the biggest like fraudulent government groups in manga. Like the Yatsuru, her being top 3. I think this is might be the only thing she's ever said in the series, and she's asking the issue is who to choose for the next lifelong contract with Cloud Gouger. And at each
who wielding this nuke next?
Wait, we recovered Cloud Gouger, right? How is that not the first? You worried about Kazane, bitch ass, but not the Cloud Gouger?
Oh yeah. That one polka dot scarf neck dude, whatever. He talks about like this Kaichi thing, which is like, we talked about this a bit, like, is this Kazane's demon monster? The way he also talks about it doesn't seem to be, because he said it's good that we kept those 2 in the reserve before the auction, but Kazane was sent as like a sort of backup. So like, that makes me think that Kaichi isn't demon monster. I mean, it still could be, but we also know that one of the other 2 that he's talking about here is Big Babe Hiyuki, which we see at the end of the volume, and it's just like such a banger way to like really like cap off this whole thing, right? Like, again, we see the sword bearers, we get a glimpse of the sword master, we find out about the lifelong contracts, like just so much info that we're fed, and just, like I said, just a banger way to close out this volume. And the conversation with the Kamunabi and Azami and Kazane as well, it's like Azami's getting pressed because this Izuru knows that he has known more than he has let on. And
by the way,
yeah, man,
fuck
so
Kazan. What you mean gonna be an investigation, bitch? Of all people, the goal.
Yeah, I mean, at least
investigation. Ain't shit happens with that. By the way, ain't no fucking investigation going on.
Oh yeah, I mean we know what happens, right? But at the very least, he didn't snitch on Azami. I guess does he get some points for that?
No,
No?
because I'm talking about Kazan. My bad. Kazan saying that there's an investigation. Him of all people
Okay.
saying his bitch ass. Kazane was born a bitch. I could tell by looking at him. He got bitch in his DNA.
Oh yeah, Kazan, bro. Kazan like LARPing like a motherfucker.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, we know that motherfucker did not start any investigations. But you know, the last thing I want to say, we do see the man in the prison at the end of this chapter 2. Those are Akamura's
Akamura,
first
yeah. Ooh. Yeah, man. Looking back at this is like so much. It's crazy how much
100
aura.
chapters later, and we still don't know female sword bearer's name.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, we barely know Subaru because of the flashback, right? But it's crazy how much aura Samura and Uruha have in these panels compared to like how we later see them.
Oh yeah, I mean,
they're
glasses
badasses,
kind of
but...
save Samura. Yeah, Uruha, he's like, now Uruha, he's definitely like mogging the rest of them, like his little gang signs.
Yeah, he's throwing them
A
up.
down. Yeah, throw it up at an A. That boy from Atlanta for sure.
Oh man, it's a banger volume, honestly.
Volume. Ends it with Hiyuki is Pookie. Ends with her, as you mentioned already. And I mean, I think that's it. We kind of talked about everything else, really.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I do like how it ends. Like, you've been granted permission to use Flamebone up to the torso. And, you know, right before that, it stated, like, there's only one individual who can combat a Sacred Blade. Crazy how it was, like, still getting translated into a Sacred Blade. Sometimes there are, like, some... at one point, Kunishigi also gets called Kunishige Rokuhiro. So, like, there were, like, some weird translation little mishaps.
Isms. We'll call those isms.
Yeah. So yeah, man, just it's cool like doing these Redux because like this being our first follow-up, right? So obviously we read volume 1 and now we read volume 2. It's, you know, reading them in batches of chapters, like obviously what a volume is. Like to me, like I can just really appreciate, and I talked about it with the art, but just like the story as a whole just continuing to level up. Like volume 1 of Kagurabachi and those first stretch of chapters are pretty strong, right? They're really good. They're fast paced. It wastes no time kind of getting into the action while setting up like a meaningful plot that like it is like does resonate with readers and gets readers invested. But like how Hokuzono just manages to like dial it up in this like volume 2 on almost every single department, right? Like the feels this time around with Char's backstory are like a lot more. Chihiro as a character, like I feel like this is really where he starts to become like a guy that you just can't help but root for. The world building, obviously like the execution of a villain and like how an ending, like a conclusion of a villain, how it's done so well. Everything really, like this volume just again, you can just tell why Kagurabachi is what it is today and how it continues to garner so much popularity. And I'm really looking forward to how like the story continues to level up in future volumes and kind of seeing that. It's I'm almost at a loss for words.
Podcast boy.
sorry.
I just like no, you were cooking. And I think like to your point, I think volume two does a better job of exemplifying what Kagurabachi is, and then it's like that is kind of like it's all up from here, you know.
Yes.
But I think that'll do it for us. I mean, you kind of took a lot of what I had to say.
I'm sorry. Just kind of.
Hey, you was cooking.
I'm sorry.
I just want to bust your balls. But I mean, well, this will be available for members first, just like all the Redux episodes will be. So if you're interested and you're not a member already, you know, we will have the volume 3 Redux probably done in around the same time frame. I think it's about 3 weeks Usually they'll
Yeah.
be probably, it could be a week sooner than that, might be a week later than that, just depends on what we got going on, but usually around that time frame of release
Yeah.
schedule. And that's it. Y'all have a good day. Peace.
Peace.